I'm Nick from nextstepnick.com, and today we're going to talk about Human Simulator. Now, this is going to be a little bit longer than normal. We're going to go to about 12 minutes, I think it is, or something like that. Normally I try and keep it to 10 or under, just because I know that everyone's busy. We don't want to see too much, you just want to get a bit of an insight. But I'm going to go on a rant about this one a little bit, and are physics engines still funny? I mean, I'm going to be honest, I saw this on a forum sort of thing. Someone was talking about this game and said, oh, this looks interesting, it's Human Simulator, and I immediately thought, oh god, fair enough, Goat Simulator was okay. After about 10 minutes it gets a bit boring. But then you've got stuff like Surgeon Simulator that show that you can do interesting things with the premise if you do it right. But then the amount of simulators there's been now, I mean, there's one for everything. There's Grass Simulator, there's Rock Simulator, and I don't mean rock as in music, I mean rock as in a rock. But I thought, okay, well maybe what we're going to do here is, I was imagining something like Octodad, or Manual Samuel. I was like, okay, the main character is a robot. Maybe there's something here in regard to sort of making sure that he's doing everything correctly. There seems to be some interesting stuff in regard to like interviews and crime solving, because you can be a security guard. And I thought, oh, maybe they're going to do some interesting things here with this game. They do not. It's just a case of difficult controls, awkward movement, something that isn't fun so much as frustrating. Like, there's a fine line between Surgeon Simulator isn't frustrating because there's comedy, but the actual controls and gameplay is easy to get into. It's difficult to master, but there's a certain degree of skill involved. This is just mad. So what I'm doing here is I'm holding left click, moving the mouse around, and then that is moving the character's head right now. At the moment we've only got the head, but it's like now they've told you to nod and shake your head. Yeah, I don't know when he recognises this. Sometimes I nod for ages, other times I don't. The head just goes into freeform all the time, so he gets suspicious if your head sort of goes backwards 180 degrees, as you would. But it's just, it's not fun. At this point I accidentally turned the radio on because I'm not really watching where my head is, then I can't turn it off, so I'm going to not subject you to that. But then there's this really awful muzak playing, think like the Sims music, but when you're actually listening to a radio in the Sims, with Simlish and stuff, it's not fun. There's a lot of stuff where it's like, okay, look at this thing, hold your gaze there, I'm glad. Like, there's no humour in this. There's no voice acting either. As you can see, the model opposite us is just the same model as us, as far as I can tell. There's very little in regard to effort put in. You're just literally sitting there, looking at stuff, someone else says yes, and then you move on. And I feel like the reason this has annoyed me so much is because there's so much potential for something to be funny in this universe. Like, for example, if you want it to be that, okay, well, we're going for an interview. Well, why don't you have us prepare? Why don't you have the person give us multiple options? Why don't you ask him to tell us to write us a test or something? Say, okay, we want you to write an answer to this. So then you're using your hands. You can draw something awkward. Like, the most fun parts of, and I'm going to, commit sacrilege here, the game that I thought had an interesting premise in regard to this stuff, in regard to interacting with the world, was actually Duke Nukem Forever. Like, don't get me wrong, the game is awful. The game is absolute dirge. But there's so much interaction with the environment. You can make your own fun, to an extent, for the first 10 minutes. But I feel like if you did something like that in a game like this, it could be really fun. But instead, it just goes on forever, and it's just basic stuff. As the game goes on, you unlock more movement. So here, I've got control over my arms in a minute as well. But like you can see, I'm nodding to say, can you hear me? It's just not recognising. Doesn't matter where my head is, doesn't matter what I'm doing. It's not exactly humorous. And you're in here for far too long. Like, I'm inside this cabin working as a crane operator at this point for ages. Like, it just milks it and milks it and milks it. I mean, I did this as a Let's Play originally, and it just wasn't fun. I wasn't having fun. There wasn't a lot to talk about. I mean, let's be honest, it's not exactly groundbreaking, is it? I have no idea why certain things are acknowledged and certain things aren't. And the missions in themselves are just boring. I mean, in this one, there's a point where you have to basically move crates back and forth. That's what you're doing all of this level. But rather than saying, okay, here is the first funny thing where you need to find a crate and put this here, or okay, here's a joke object, or here's some navigation. Oh no, you can only do this, you have to dodge these things, or something like that. That doesn't happen at all. It's just moving crates around. It's no more complex than that. Then at one point, we have to find a crate under some other crates, so you just knock them everywhere. There's no penalty for knocking them everywhere. There's no penalty for anything like that. You just knock them everywhere, and nobody says anything, and some stuff explodes. All those fuel barrels you can see down there, they explode. Far too loudly, I might add. The sound levels are mad. Things just get launched everywhere, and it's like, okay. Like, I'm not laughing at physics. And like here is a good example of when I thought things were going to get interesting and just didn't. So apparently within these workers you can see walking down there, one of them is a spy or a union worker or something. So they tell you to kill him. Right, okay, fair enough, I guess. But then the thing is that there's no way of identifying which one of them he is. They all look the same. And then you just literally wave the crates around, they let out the same stock scream, just oh, each time you kill one, until eventually the text pops up, oh good, you've killed the right one. I mean, there's so much potential here for actually doing something funny. So make them all walk differently, make them do little mannerisms, allow you to zoom in on the cameras yourself and examine which one's which, and just maybe you get penalised unless you kill the right one. Maybe there's a penalty. Maybe you could do something funny here in regard to maybe they get in a crane and you'd then be competing to move stuff in time. There's loads of stuff you could do here that could make this formula, and I know it's a tired formula, but could make it funny. But they just don't do that. I mean, like now, I'm just crushing them and they're going, yeah, that's good, I'll crush the right one. And there's very little humour. Like, there's stuff happening and you think, okay, this could be a funny situation. It's not. I mean, as you can see here, I'm just sort of waving around. It's just, yeah. And this goes on for, I don't even know how long. It's novel to be in a new area to explore for about 10 to 15 minutes. I mean, let's be honest, I can't move from this spot either, so it's not exactly like I can explore or find anything. There's nothing to find. There's no other interactions. There's no objects in the world that do anything for any reason. You can't drop something somewhere and make a funny noise, or crush something and blow something up and it do anything. It's just generic noises, just stock stuff and generic noises shoved into an environment. And I don't mean to be this harsh. I was given this game, basically from the developer, to actually play it, so I don't want to be this harsh, but at the same time, the reason I'm so frustrated is because there's so much potential here to do something interesting with this formula. I mean, there's a point where you're a security guard. There's even a point where you get to nuclear worker, but I'm going to be honest, I didn't go that far. But the controls are just so bad. It's not like Surgeon Simulator where you can learn how to move or, and I know I keep going back to that, but I feel like that has set a standard. If that game has come out and set that standard, you need to be able to at very least follow that standard, have the same kind of thing. Here, this has a lot of premise to be interesting if you actually let us be a security guard and decide what we were doing, and we moved fluidly and we were able to sort out scenarios ourselves, and they were kind of comical, but they're not. It's just a case of your arms move awkwardly, you still have to point at stuff and nod your head at things. Fair enough, it could have been done interestingly, but it doesn't handle well. There, I'm trying to reach for my taser. I accidentally tased myself in the head, fair enough. But that actually made me laugh. That was the only point of the game that made me laugh. But it doesn't let you solve anything. People come up and you have to solve whether or not they can go through this door. It does not let you solve that yourself, it just tells you what to do. Here is John. John is not allowed. Get him with the taser. Here is Stuart. Stuart is allowed. Open the door. Drink your coffee. Like, an easy way to make this more interesting would have been to have a first meter, so I had to consistently drink my coffee. Or I had to let people through based on deduction. If they look like they don't deserve to be through, or if they look like they're not exactly following a certain formula, or they look like, like this guy, a drunk guy, we need to stop him from coming in. I should be allowed to choose how I do that, but they don't tell you. So like now, for example, I have no idea how to dissuade this guy. I'm just stood there, and then after about 5 minutes it says wave your baton in the air. Sorry, at no point have I tried to go through a door and a security guard has waved his baton at me. That sounds like an innuendo. It's not an innuendo, but it's just a case of, I'm shocked now watching this back how far I got playing this, because I'm so disappointed with interesting games just jumping on the bandwagon of physics are funny, this has been done, this is humorous. Like, you could have done some really interesting stuff here. For example, as stupid as it sounds, a guy was annoying halfway through. My immediate reaction was throw coffee in his face. That could have been funny. Don't get me wrong, it's not the thing to do. But like this guy, okay, we need to dissuade this guy. But it just goes on too long. It's not funny. We don't really address it. There's no funny noises or anything like that. It literally, the sound of the text is typing. Just click, 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 click. So every time you see a huge amount of text, click, 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 click. Nothing reacts to anything. You can't break anything. There's no real physics interaction with the rest of the world. It's just... yeah, and then a lot of the time you just press E to move on, but you don't realise it's there because obviously it's just flashing in the corner. So you just stood there being like, what am I meant to be doing here? What am I meant to be doing here? And the problem is, I'm starting to run out of words. The problem is that a game like this, like I said, has so much premise to be interesting and good. It's got a lot of interesting points that you could do some fun stuff with. You could give the person freedom, a bit like Octodad. You have to get from A to B, but there's a lot of mad stuff in between. And that's where the fun is. Don't get me wrong, it's still limited in regard to how far you can go and the scope, but at the same time, you can make something fun. Just a party game or something comical to play with friends, or just something that will make you smile for half an hour. But this was just annoying, and by the time I got to the end, I didn't even care. I mean, this macho-looking child came along, I just tased them. I was just like, no, I'm done here. And then I got chased off in a weird way when I can't actually move like that the whole way through the game. I mean, maybe you can move like that later on in the game. I would like to run around like that. When I saw this image at one point, I thought that was going to be how I interacted with the world. It's not. You know, that could have been interesting. Could have been cool to explore an environment like that, but no. I mean, even the guys chasing me are the same person I play as, so... yeah. Anyway, that's Human Simulator. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And as well as that, head over to nextstepnick.com for all the latest news, reviews and articles. Other than that, thank you very much for tuning in. Have a great day, and I'll see you all very soon.